Hello, everyone. Dom and Mike, spoiler alert here. Mike is here, me, and from time to time we bring you different stories and sometimes spooky stuff, and this is definitely in the spooky category. Um, and I'm reading it actually from a book I believe it was dated back in the early 70s, 72, 73, but probably there's been multiple editions, Strange Stories and Amazing Facts. And if anyone's ever been familiar with this, it's a really cool book. You can find it used. I think it's out of print, but you can definitely find it around. And it's got some cool tales in it. Some of them are, you know, there's all types of tales, a lot of spooky ones, though, ghost stories and things like that. But just amazing things. And anyway, today I'm bringing you a story, a spooky story um, that is, Victorian London, England period. They had no shortage of strange, weird events and occurrences. They had their, Jack the Ripper, and one of the ones that they was very popular at the time, or has been popular in myth, and that is the story of Spring-Heeled Jack. And Spring-Heeled Jack was this is a Victorian depiction of him trying to carry off a. Apparently, he was very fond of the ladies. He did several. I guess that you could say Jack the Ripper was too, but anyway, apparently he jumped, attacked different women at different times, and they all seemed to be young and pretty. But he that wasn't his primary thing. He seemed to, if this creature is true, he was supposedly some kind of demonic creature. But I'm going to read the story to you right out of Strange Stories and Amazing Facts, and then I'll tell you why it's possible that Spring Hill Jack also helped to inspire the Rolling Stones' Jumpin' Jack Flash. Um, and It's pure conjecture on my part, but I think it's got a got a chance at being probable because of if you uh, if you look at some of the story, even around how they said they wrote the song. But anyway, here's Strange Stories and Amazing Facts version of Spring Hill Jack, and here it is. Spring Hill Jack, the Superman with the eyes of a devil. Out of the mists of the night he came, a leaping, bounding Superman who held a nation in a grip of terror for more than 60 years. At first, he was just a rumor. Few took much notice when people crossing a common southwest London first reported seeing an alarming figure that flew through the air in great leaps and bounds. He flew across their paths with great leaps, but the reports persisted until they were terrifyingly confirmed a year later in February of 1838. Jane Alsop was young and pretty. She lived with her two sisters and their father on a London back street. She had heard of the boogeyman called Spring Hill Jack, but she was too sensible to heed such tales. One night there was a violent knocking at the door. Jane went to answer it. The man standing in the shadows near the front gate swung around. "I'm a police officer," he said, "and for God's sakes, bring me a light, for we've caught Spring Hill Jack in the lane." The stories were true after all, thought Jane excitedly as she ran to fetch a candle. "I'll see him being arrested." She rushed back outside with the candle, but as she gave it to the man at the gate, he grabbed her by the neck and pinned her head under his arm. Then he ripped at her dress and body. She screamed and tore herself away. He chased her, caught her by her hair, and clawed her face and neck. Her sister, hearing her screams, ran out into the street and cried out for help. But before anyone could stop him, Jack suddenly soared away into the darkness. Jane later described her inhuman attacker to the police officials. He was wearing a kind of helmet, she told them, and with a tight-fitting white costume like an oilskin. His face was hideous. His eyes were like balls of fire. His hands had great claws, and he vomited blue and white flames. It was a description that was to be repeated over and over again in the following years. Always the leaps, the flames, and the eyes of hell were recounted. Lucy Scales was 18 years old, the sister of a butcher. She had just left her brother's house one evening on her way home with her sister, and as they walked along a lonely street, a tall, cloaked figure suddenly jumped out of the shadows. He spat blue flames at Lucy's face, blinding her. During the 1850s and 1860s, Spring Hill Jack was sighted all over England, particularly in the Midlands. In the 1870s, army authorities set traps after scared sentries suddenly started reporting being terrified by a man who darted out of the darkness to slap their faces with an icy hand or, or sprang out onto the rooftops of their sentry boxes. Angry townspeople shot at him in the street one night in 1877. Always he laughed and just melted away. No one, even today, really has any idea who or what Spring Hill Jack was. For a while, suspicion was laid on the Marquis of Waterford, an eccentric young man. But although the Mad Marquis, as he was known, was one of the wild ones of Victorian society, he was never known to be vicious. Jack's Eyes of Hell were last seen in 1904 in Liverpool, the home of the Beatles. 66 years after the first sighting, there he started a panic one night by bounding up and down the street, leaping from cobblestone to rooftops and back. When some of the braver ones tried to corner him, he simply vanished into the darkness he came from, this time for good. And that is the story of Spring Hill Jack. And it could all be mass hysteria, could be a lot of things, but it definitely was something that, I mean, there are people who say that it may have inspired Batman, and some of the early drawings and depictions of Spring Hill Jack, he was actually done up to look a little bit like the Batman later. So who knows? Everything's inspired by something. And like I said, who knows? It's definitely a curious story, a curious tale. Um, and I mean, it was happening, you know, in Victorian England. It certainly couldn't have been somebody with some kind of weird, like costume that was, unless people were really exaggerating which, people are known to do. But it definitely has inspired people's imagination over the years. Definitely a spooky story. And it's inspired a lot of things. Like I said, it's possible Batman. It definitely inspired some toys, some dangerous ones. Spring Hill Jacks. You can get those spring shoes and jump all over the place. Who knows? The Nikes with the little air pump might have been inspired by it. But at any rate, I also have a little bit of a theory that Jumpin' Jack Flash could have been. I mean, let's face it, the Stones, like the Beatles, were all around Liverpool, and that was a big mythology story. And what I've heard about how it was written, Mick and Keith Richards were up all night at his house. They were they were working on songs and probably partying, and they finally started to fall asleep, and Mick suddenly was woken up by hearing a sound, and when he called out to Keith and said, "What is that? What's that noise?" Keith Richards laughed and said, "Oh, that's just like Jack the Gardener, Jumpin' Jack." And he goes, and so they started working on the song, and Keith kept playing Jumpin' Jack, and that's when Mick added Flash, and it just kind of worked. But I mean, did it have anything to do with but I mean, they obviously had heard that story. Everybody in that area had heard the story. So jumping Jack and then adding the flash because he would leap off in a flash into the night. So did it have any inspiration for the Stones? Possibly. Just conjecture, but kind of a cool thought that what was the story? Who was this? Who or what was this thing? Was it something that was just people making up tales, or was it, really something that actually had occurred back then? But anyway, I just thought I'd bring you that story, and I think it's kind of fun. It's a little bit spooky, and if you were walking around Victorian England at that time, you didn't want that thing coming out at you from the darkness. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section and let me know what you think. Um, is it all just silliness? Um, but a lot of fun anyway, just to speculate. And hope you enjoyed it. Dom and Mike spoiler alert. Please like, subscribe if you would, and come back, check out our other stuff. We have a lot of material up. Check our channel. And if you would, like I said, the like and the subscribe really helps. So thank you very much. See you next time.